let's talk about Alien Romulus, the sequel, and also the controversial decision that they made with a certain character, which Fede Álvarez has talked about recently, and all that stuff. So before we get into it, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Let's get to 33,000 subscribers today. I think we can get to that today, so very excited about that. Follow us on our website, www.culturelixir.com, as well as our Instagram at itsculturelixir, and let's get into Alien Romulus, a sequel, what that would look like. Of course, spoilers ahead for Alien Romulus, its ending and all of that, so you've been warned. Let's get into it. So this is a whole thing that's been talked about for the past couple of days since Romulus got released, is the use of Ian Holm as the character Rook, who was the synthetic that we saw in Alien Romulus. And of course, Ian Holm had played the synthetic Ash in the 1979 film. So this was a whole thing that people were discussing, and it's still a big discussion right now, is was this ethically right, morally? Where do we all stand with this? Now, I already made a whole video where I just discussed that and the morals and the ethics, and I gave you my thoughts and opinions on it. If you want to check that out, check it out. Here we have the director themselves, Fede Álvarez, talking about it. So he talks about them wanting to bring Rook into the film, and that was actually a collaborative decision with Scott, who apparently also wanted to see another version of the artificial person he had introduced 45 years ago. And of course, I'm talking about Ridley Scott. Apparently, they used the whole thing about, apparently the Romulus team received approval from Holmes' estate, and we discussed that as well, that the widow of Holm actually okayed all of this. We talked about that in the previous video. They used the head cast from Lord of the Rings as the foundation. Legacy effects built Rook's torso and head as an animatronic, and the practical character was then enhanced with CG and deepfake AI technology for certain shots as they were needed. And this is what Álvarez said about it all. It was unfair that the likeness of Ash was never used again. Lance Henriksen has been used a few times. Michael Fassbender got to do it a few times. So when we started thinking about the likeness of this character with Ridley, it was going to be a torso and head that we would build. So it didn't need to be the likeness of a current working actor. And Ridley was one who said, Ash was always the best, he needs to make a comeback. So it's interesting to note now that we definitely have confirmation that this was a thing that Ridley Scott as well wanted to include, especially this being a direct sequel to Alien, because it takes place after the events of Alien. Not saying it takes place with the crew of Alien, but definitely interesting, and I wonder how that would change people's minds about it as well. Like I said, it's still a very great topic. It's not a black and white answer here, so curious to know where you stand on all of this. Fede also talked about the whole scene with Kay being pregnant, and then by the end of the fourth act, giving birth to this xenomorph hybrid known now as the Offspring. Apparently he did get some opposition about this choice, and it apparently went like this. They did push back at the beginning with regards to the Offspring, but not because they didn't like it. They just thought, is it too much? Do we really have to go there? And I was like, yeah, now that you said that we shouldn't, I know that I will. If you're given an Alien movie by a corporation that is owned by Disney and they immediately say, yeah, let's make it, then you're failing somehow. So we really pushed it to the limit, and I'm glad we did. So very interesting stuff right there for sure. So I'm curious to know what you think about all of this, about Alien Romulus, its fourth act, some people are calling it as well, because an Alien movie always has a fourth act, as everybody says. Do you like it or not? Or do you think that it should have just stopped and we shouldn't get more Alien films right now? Or do you think somebody else should go about getting it? Let me know. But very curious to know your thoughts on it, because apparently Fede Álvarez did talk to the Hollywood Reporter, talking about teasing ideas, if you will, about an Alien Romulus sequel if it would come into fruition. So he did say that he wanted to make a Alien vs. Predator movie with Dan Trachtenberg, who did the Prey film. But he also does talk about maybe going further into the Romulus line and maybe exploring more of what comes right after. And this is what he had to say. This is when asked about what the future holds for Rain and Andy and what that could look like. And he says him and his co-writer Rodo Sayagues could pitch something tomorrow. Yes, I definitely can. We tend to do that naturally, not even thinking about sequels. For us, movies have not become franchises, temples, and sequels. This is a language that I've only learned in the last 10 years of my life working here. For me, it's always been about story. So once we finished we started thinking, what do you think happens when, or if they get to Ivaga? Is it going to be great, or is it a terrible place? We tend to believe it's probably a terrible place that they think is great and fantasize about. So we naturally started thinking about where it goes and what's going to happen, and then a few minutes in we go, oh, that sounds like a sequel. But he also says that he's in no rush to get the sequel, and this is what he says. But we really try to think about it more in terms of story and if it needs another chapter and whether people want to know what happens next. So we'll wait and see what people think, and if people ask for it, my philosophy is that you should never make a sequel in 2 years. You've got to get away. You've got to get the audience to really want it. If you think about Alien and Aliens, there's 7 years between them, but we definitely have ideas about where it should go. So definitely sounds like they are definitely waiting to see what the full reception will be once the film has rolled out of theaters, goes to home movies, all of that. Fede probably wants to do something else in the meantime, and I think this is the best way. I think that we've seen it with so many other franchises where fatigue sets in quick, and people, if you keep giving them, there's no want for it really, and then things just go to mess and they spoil, and then everybody just starts hating on it. So I think it's best to wait and see what they want to do next. We are getting another Prey film, and I think that's pretty good to sort of whet the appetite of these like alien space sci-fi films. If we get AVP 3, I'm not opposed to that either before we get Romulus, so that definitely does set up a good 5 to 7 year sort of like gap between the alien films, and I think that's probably the best way to go. So let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. If you loved Alien Romulus or not, what do you think about Fede Álvarez talking about Ian Holmes' likeness being used? What did you think about that fourth act that Disney thought was a little bit too much, but not in terms of it being gross or anything like that, but just too many things going on? Did that fourth act turn you away from the film, or did it make you appreciate the film more? I see a lot of people who hated the film saying they loved the fourth act, and a lot of people saying who hated the fourth act like the rest of the film. So the opinions are all over the place, and I'm curious to know what yours are, so comment it down below. But as always, that's going to do it for me. 35,000 subscribers is our goal. We can get to 33,000 today. We have less than 10 subscribers to go for that. So make sure you subscribe, notification bell, follow us on our website, cultureelixir.com, as well as our Instagram at itscultureelixir. And I'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.
Whatever comes, we'll face it together.
Let's go.